This program is brought to you in part by CIE Tours International. For over 80 years featuring all-inclusive tours and go-as-you-please value vacations throughout Ireland and Britain. CIEtours.com. And by Tourism Ireland, celebrating a special year in Ireland, The Gathering 2013. A year-long countrywide celebration of music, food, culture, and unique events. Ireland.com. And by...
Today you'll find the Irish Americans where the need is greatest, giving time, money, talent, and concern to whomever needs it most, contributing as only the Irish can to the spirit of America. Mutual of America, your retirement company.
Hello and welcome. I'm Patricia O'Reilly and I'm delighted you could join us for another edition of Out of Ireland. Coming up on this week's programme, we look at serious fun camps, residential camps for children with serious illnesses, set up by the late Paul Newman. But first, for a roundup of the week's news from Ireland, over to RTE, Ireland's national broadcasting service.
Public sector unions have warned of a campaign of industrial action if the government moves to impose unilateral pay cuts. In the Dáil today, the Taoiseach gave his reaction to the rejection of the Croke Park 2 deal.
We have to, we must, and we will find 300 million of extra savings this year from payroll.
A clear message from the Taoiseach in the Dáil after the rejection of Croke Park 2 by the unions. But while the target may be clear enough, the opposition were keen to find out exactly how the government plans to reach it.
Does the government have a plan B here? Because the Minister, responsible Mr Howland, seemed to be shell-shocked on the 6-1 News last evening.
Will you respect the outcome of the union's vote on Croke Park 2? Will you now withdraw your threat of an across-the-board cut of 7%?
No specifics from the Taoiseach. He said the government would reflect on the ballot result and indicated that it would listen to whatever unions had to say.
The government's door is always open and has always been open to unions and their representatives to make their views known.
After meeting this afternoon, the Public Services Committee of the Irish Congress of Trades Unions had an equally clear message for the government.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that if the government moves to unilaterally cut the pay of public servants, that there will be a campaign of industrial action. I don't think that there's any dispute about that.
The rejection of the Croke Park proposals dominated a 2-hour meeting of the Parliamentary Labour Party this afternoon. No appetite there for across-the-board pay cuts. Some backbenchers saying it's now up to the unions to come up with alternatives to reach the necessary savings. David McCull, RT News, Leinster House.
Anti-property tax and austerity protesters gathered outside the ECOFIN meeting in Dublin Castle. Speakers urged the crowd not to pay what they call the home tax and promised a national campaign of resistance.
The march was organised by the Campaign Against Household and Water Taxes, and they came from all over to register their protest. It was partly against austerity in general, but property tax was the main concern.
I worked until I was 70 years of age to secure my house, and I have no intention now of paying a property tax on that to bail out the bankers that have destroyed this country.
It's not fair. There should be a wealth tax, not a property tax. It's hitting the people at the bottom all the time. Same people.
Organisers said people have been pushed too far.
The government and the Troika seem to be living in a different planet, that they think they can load this home tax and more cuts on people who can't pay their mortgages and can't pay their bills. This is the beginning of a people's revolt against this cruel, unjust austerity programme that is killing us.
Apart from an attempt to burn an EU flag, there was little sign of trouble. Gardaí had mounted a cordon around Dublin Castle and closed some streets. However, further protests are already planned. Sinead Hussey, RTÉ News.
An international conference in Dublin on hunger and climate change has heard that 1 in 4 children under 5 around the world suffers from chronic malnutrition. The Irish government has signed a 3-year deal to provide €21 million to the UN World Food Programme.
Here at Dublin Castle on the first day of this international conference on hunger, nutrition and climate justice, 200 global leaders and decision makers have been hearing the first-hand experiences of food shortages from 100 people from vulnerable communities in Africa, Asia and the Arctic Circle. Iyasu and Kidanu are part of the farming community in Ethiopia. They've come to Ireland to tell the gathered global leaders just how climate change is affecting them. The biggest problem they face is that they can no longer predict the rain and so can't grow their crops and can't feed their families.
Farmers were planting as usual and it failed. They were not aware enough late setting of the rainfall. As usual, they were thinking that the rain will come on time, but basically it doesn't happen.
The men are just 2 of 100 grassroots representatives attending this conference, hoping to make the decision makers listen to them before drafting new policies, an approach that hasn't been taken before.
We haven't prioritised the way to do it well, which is to put people at the centre, to care about human rights, including the right to food and good nutrition. To have gender equality. I was very glad in the conference that the importance of women's empowerment, the gender dimension, have come out very strongly.
It's really serious and it's not far away. It's not a problem of our grandchildren. It's a problem facing farmers today.
Some good news today. Despite the current budgetary pressures here, an agreement was signed, committing the government to give €21 million over the next 3 years to the World Food Programme, the world's largest humanitarian agency, which fed almost 100 million people last year.
A lot of people listening to this may say, you know, how can we be doing this at a time when we're cutting expenditure in all sorts of different programmes in Ireland that are badly needed? But I think it's important to get this into perspective. This is about feeding starving people.
What's most important, though, is that we, during these times that are financially challenged in Ireland, that we are as efficient and as effective and spend those dollars so that we provide real value, not just to those we serve, but to those who are investing.
Tonight, UNICEF has issued a challenge to the international community to ensure that all children have access to adequate nutrition for the first 1,000 days of their lives.
Aisling Brady McCarthy, an Irish nanny accused of murdering a 1-year-old child, appeared in court in Massachusetts today. She's to remain in custody after bail was refused at the hearing in Boston.
Proceedings started at Middlesex Superior Court in Woburn just after 11 o'clock. Aisling Brady McCarthy was led into the courtroom and was briefly visible to the public gallery. Initially, the arraignment case was overseen by a magistrate of the court, but when it came to whether Aisling Brady McCarthy would be released on bail, a judge listened to the arguments from both the prosecution and the defence. During the arraignment, charges of murder in the first degree and assault on battery and 1-year-old Rehma Sabir were put to Aisling Brady McCarthy. The nanny, who's originally from County Cavan but living illegally in the United States, pleaded not guilty in a distressed and sobbing voice. After a short adjournment, Miss Brady McCarthy was brought back into court and Judge Thomas Billings heard applications relating to the defendant's bail. Brady McCarthy's lawyer, Belinda Thompson, stressed that she is not a flight risk. She said her client wants to remain in the United States to answer questions and to clear her name. The district attorney voiced concerns about Miss Brady McCarthy's possibility of being deported to Ireland. He said once she was on bail, she could be picked up by the federal authorities and deported back to Ireland. If that happened, he claimed Ireland would not extradite her back to the United States for a capital offence. Judge Thomas Billings noted the defendant had no previous convictions, but he remanded her without bail until May 9th. Cian McCormack, RTÉ News, Woburn, Massachusetts.
A celebration of translations of Seamus Heaney's poetry was held at Trinity College in Dublin tonight. The poet read a selection of his works, which were then read in 5 other languages at an event to mark the opening of a Centre for Literary Translation at the university.
Will down, waited for, in place at last, and for good.
Seamus Heaney in English, in Russian, and in Spanish. The work of the Derry native has been translated into around 40 different languages. And tonight, that international reach was celebrated.
I am happy to say that my translators are a lot of them are poets, and I know from the way they talk about the poetry, the way they read it, the melodies of their voice, the cadences, that you know when it's being caught right.
Beating high against the breeze.
Heaney famously translated Beowulf along with English versions of Dante. And he recalled this week's 15th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement.
Well, it was a change in the weather. Before that, it was gloom and shadow. And the Anti-austerity agreement opened the clouds a little bit, light shone through, and people began to work with hope. Yeah.
On his own appeal, Heaney says he's just grateful it translates. Sandra Hurley, RTE News.
A Peace and Reconciliation Centre at the site of the Maze prison in Northern Ireland has been given planning permission. EU grant aid will be used to help fund the project. The design work is being carried out by the architect involved in the reconstruction of the Ground Zero site in New York.
For 30 years, it was one of the most famous prisons in the world. Bobby Sands was one of 10 Republican prisoners who died on hunger strike at the Maze. Loyalist prisoner Billy Wright was murdered here in 1997. Now a Peace and Reconciliation Centre is to be built here. The announcement was made not by the 2 main parties in the power-sharing executive, but by the SDLP minister in charge of planning issues.
There is every reason to have a centre at the Maze in order to address the legacy of our conflict. But we need to ensure that we do it right, that space is not claimed by one or other.
The Stormont administration is indeed challenged by what to do with this huge, vacant 350-acre site. A plan to build a sports stadium here was scrapped. Unionists don't want it to be seen solely as a shrine to Bobby Sands and Republican prisoners, as happened with Robben Island and Nelson Mandela.
There's a lot of controversy around the retained prison buildings. We have to deal with that sensitively. For every prisoner inside the prison, there was at least one victim and maybe many victims outside. And their concerns have to be taken on board on all of this.
Many administrations would love this challenge. £18 million of EU funding to spend on a Peace and Reconciliation Centre. But given what happened here over flags, this project will test Northern Ireland's politicians. Tommy Gorman, RTE News, Belfast.
The first symphony composed in Ireland is about to be performed for the first time in almost 200 years, following the discovery of several missing sections. The lost parts of the symphony, which was written in Dublin by the French composer Paul Alday in 1816, were uncovered in the National Library's uncatalogued music collection.
A symphony saved by serendipity. Dr. Catherine Ferris was beginning a study of the National Library's uncatalogued music collection when
the missing parts to the Alday started appearing.
This symphony was composed almost 2 centuries ago, but these sections were thought to have been lost forever.
I thought all my Christmases had come at once. Genuinely, I thought it's a really significant find. It's the first symphony composed in Ireland. It's something that musicologists have been actively looking for 60 years. And we didn't have a full set. We didn't know what this sounds like.
We do now. The full set of parts has been digitally transcribed. The DIT Camerata is preparing to perform it for the first time since the early 19th century. This rehearsal was also the first time Catherine had heard it.
I didn't have any expectations. That's the thing. I had no idea what it was going to sound like. And it just comes alive. It's fantastic.
A review any composer would be delighted with, even after 200 years. Philip Bromwell, RTE News, Dublin.
Finally tonight, President Higgins held a party for Team Ireland today to celebrate their success at the Special Olympics Winter Games. But the team turned the tables on the President to celebrate his 72nd birthday.
Happy birthday, dear President. Happy birthday to you.
The news from Ireland was, as usual, brought to you by RTE, Ireland's national broadcasting service. And now we take a look at a network of holiday camps designed specifically for children with serious illnesses. Founded in the US by the late Paul Newman, their first overseas camp was established in Ireland at Barrettstown in County Kildare. This could be any summer camp anywhere in the US. Children having fun. But this is a hole-in-the-wall camp, now known as a Serious Fun camp, where children with serious and often life-threatening illnesses can experience the joy, adventure and wonder of childhood.
And the kids get up there and there's a pirate flag that sits out there.
The camps were originally founded in 1988 by the late actor Paul Newman, who spoke passionately about the programme when we met with him at his house in Westport in Connecticut in 2004.
All my life I've been aware of how lucky I am, in more ways than one. And what I wanted really to do with these camps, I think, was to acknowledge the brutality of luck, especially with kids. That was, I think, what gave rise to it to begin with.
Now, you have a lot of demands on your time, yet you're so involved with these camps. They obviously mean a lot to you.
If I'm going to leave a legacy, I'd like it to be this. The kids come from a climate where they're considered different, and they're treated differently, and in some cases, you know, the other children stay away from them a lot. But here, everybody's the same. Everybody's equal. And that gives them a chance to really blossom. And the programs really are designed to give the children back their childhood.
So just because they're sick doesn't mean to say that there's not a lot of things that they can actually do?
They raise a lot of hell. And so, you know, some of the kids are in remission, and you should come to the mess hall some night that kids are eating, and there's a lot of noise and a lot of good feelings. It's not a downer to go there. People say, "Gee, I don't think I'd like to come there," and it's a joyful place to be.
This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me.
Since 1988, over 300,000 children have benefited from the camps and their outreach programs. Some 14 residential camps have now been established, all open to families free of charge, including 8 here in the US, and their first overseas camp, founded in 1994 in Ireland at Barrettstown in County Kildare. Now, the camp in Ireland, Barrettstown, how did it come about, and why Ireland?
Well, I was in London and working, and someone had said something about a property being available over there, maybe. And it was Elizabeth Arden's old estate with a big red door. And it was a 16th century manor house. And in the back, there were all these neo-Gothic stables that were built around the turn of the century. Our Connecticut camp was kind of based on a western town And this, I could see medieval jousting, and the government offered us the property at £1 for a 99, £1 a year for 99 years, 500 acres, and it was our first overseas adventure. And everybody just chipped in. I think we had 124 kids there the first time. We had a couple of cabins. We had no mess hall. We ate at tents. They cooked in a manor house kitchen and handed the food out through the windows. Kids had a hell of a time. And over the years, we have kids from all the Scandinavian countries, from Belarus, from Czechoslovakia, Germany, UK, mostly Irish kids. And if they speak different languages, it really doesn't make that much difference. They say in 48 hours, they're draped over each other like blankets.
Paul, no doubt, would be very proud of the achievements at Barrettstown in recent years. While his movies will be long remembered, countless lives have been transformed by his fun camps, and they continue to do so on a daily basis.
We absolutely miss Paul terribly, but we're very proud of the fact that we can continue Paul's legacy, and that is to provide our programmes of therapeutic recreation for children and their families who are affected by serious illness. Paul loved children, and I think he would be very proud today if he could see just how much Barrettstown has developed. It's hard to believe that when Barrettstown first started in 1994 that only 124 children came to camp and actually stayed in a marquee on our grounds, and now on an annual basis we welcome over 2,000 campers. In actual fact, last year we celebrated the milestone of welcoming our 25,000th camper through the gates since it first started.
The summer camp at Barrettstown caters to kids between the ages of 7 to 17. Younger children are welcomed with their families on weekends. They come not just from Ireland, but from across Europe and indeed the US. Dia Hearn, the CEO of Barrettstown, has seen firsthand the positive impact on the young campers.
When a child is diagnosed with a life-threatening condition, it is very tough on that child. They spend long periods of time in hospital and in most cases in isolation. They don't get to see any of their friends. So when they come through our gates at Barrettstown, they realise actually that they're not alone. They see other children who've spent long periods of time in hospital. They see children who maybe have lost their hair due to the gruelling treatment that they've had. So they make new friends, and this helps to rebuild their confidence and their self-esteem, and then they drop those barriers that they had before they came to camp, and they really have some very serious fun. Everywhere you go in Barrettstown, you will see letters from mums and dads thanking us for giving them back the child that they had before the diagnosis of a life-threatening illness.
Families and supporters have long been aware of the benefits of the SeriousFun camps. Now, an ongoing evaluation by Yale School of Medicine gives scientific support to that conclusion. But success creates demand, and camps such as Barrettstown need to expand further to meet that demand.
We know that it works because we get the feedback from the children themselves who attend camp, from their parents, from their doctors, from their nurses, and they all tell us that they see a significant improvement in the child and in the child's confidence and self-esteem when they return from a period at camp. We're also working with Yale, who are currently looking into why this is working. Barrettstown has been hugely successful, but with that success comes more demand for the programme that we provide at camp, and we have many children and their families on our waiting list, and it's incredibly difficult to say to a family and a child that they can't come to camp. At the moment our camps typically run from the end of March right through to the end of October, and I would like for us to be able to expand our camp calendar so that we stay open all year round, so that we can welcome more children and more families to Barrettstown.
I don't know. There's something that is so vulnerable to me about children's illnesses. They don't have the emotional equipment to deal with them like an adult. And it's that kind of brutality, I think, must be tended to in some way. And that's what these camps provide. And it's my belief, and it's through learning, that these camps provide nourishment for these kids for a whole year, or for 2 years, or they carry it with them through their adulthood. And So I take great comfort in that.
This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away.
And for more information on the SeriousFun camps in Barrettstown, you can visit their website at barrettstown.org. Well, that's it for another week here on Out of Ireland. Don't forget to join us at the same time next week. But for now, from all of us here, I'm Patricia O'Reilly. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
This program is brought to you in part by CIE Tours International. For over 80 years featuring all-inclusive tours and go-as-you-please value vacations throughout Ireland and Britain. CIEtours.com. And by Tourism Ireland, celebrating a special year in Ireland, The Gathering 2013. A year-long countrywide celebration of music, food, culture, and unique events. Ireland.com. And by...
Today you'll find the Irish Americans where the need is greatest, giving time, money, talent, and concern to whomever needs it most, contributing as only the Irish can to the spirit of America. Mutual of America, your retirement company.